Intuitive Approach of Shankara's Vedanta by Sri D.B. GangoLLi. In this lecture series, we have already seen 6 sessions. Today is the 7th session. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Dr. Krishnamurti Shastri, Dambe, Punacha, Bantwala Taluk, Dakshina Kannada Jille, Karnataka, Bharata. Today's third section is about the importance given to Adhyasa Bhashya in Shankara Prasthana. Question number 24. After discarding both the Vyakhyanas and the Bhashyantaras or other Bhashyas, is there any easy device to determine the Vedanta Siddhanta in accordance with Sri Shankara's methodology? Yes, of course. This great teacher has, in truth, given the quintessence of all his prasthana in his work called Adhyasa Bhashya, which he has written in the form of an introduction to his Sutra Bhashya, Brahma Sutra Bhashya. Here in this book, first it will be explained as to how this brief Adhyasa Bhashya serves the purpose of being an introductory commentary to the elaborative Bhashya on the Shariraka Mimamsa Sutras, Brahma Sutras or Vedanta Sutras, or Uttara Mimamsa Sutras. Then we will, or Badarayana Sutras, then or Chaturlakshani Sutras. These are the names. Then we will try to demonstrate as to how Sri Shankara is fully engaged and engrossed in repeatedly utilizing those very opinions or conclusions which he has deduced and depicted in this introductory bhashya in his endeavor to determine, nay, establish for all times the real purport of Vedanta Vakya or the Upanishadic sentences. Question number 25. Is it your considered opinion that all the important and prominent topics which are propounded or enunciated in the Vedanta Shastra are condensed in this introduction? Can we believe at all this apparently tall claim that in this small sized text itself, all the essence of such huge treatises like the Upanishad Bhashyas as well as the Gita Bhashya has been compacted? Even if it is so, can we further believe that both the followers of the Vyakhyana Prasthana and the rival Bhashyakaras, who have propounded their own different systems of spiritual teachings, Siddhantas, have shown a Nelson eye, so to speak, to this fact about this Adhyasa Bhashya and have proceeded quite nonchalantly to determine the purport of Vedantic reality on the basis of their respective methodologies? Answer. In fact, in order to bring home to our readers all these truths in this treatise alone, we have undertaken this arduous task. Hence, to explain in detail each topic with its subtle purport and authentic source found in this condensed introductory text, to pinpoint the attention of the Jijnasus aspirants towards the fact that in the later parts of the Bhashyas, how this prime purport has been detected and described at various places repeatedly, and how from different viewpoints it is examined and explained by Sri Shankara, and finally to clarify or elucidate the hard fact as to how the followers of the various Vyakhyana Prasthanas and the Bhashyantara Karas have totally neglected this importance of the introductory bhashya on Adhyasa, or perhaps not being able to grasp the esoteric aspects of those spiritual teachings how they have, because of their pride in their own different methodologies or theories, try to explain and adopt Sri Shankara's opinions or teachings in quite a different, distorted manner. In all such manifold directions, we will extend our efforts. 26th question. What is the reason for giving or attaching greater importance to Adhyasa Bhashya than all the other Bhashyas or on Prasthanatraya? एवं अयम अनादिर अनंतो अध्यासो मिथ्या प्रत्यय रूपः कर्तृत्व भोक्तृत्व प्रवर्तकः सर्वलोक प्रत्यक्षः. Meaning, in this manner, adhyasa, misconception, which is anadi, beginningless, ananta, endless, and swabhavika, quite natural, is of the nature of misconception and is capable of projecting both Kartrutva, agentship of action, and Bhoktrutva, enjoyership, and is in everyone's experience. The disparateness and distinctness of the two Vedantic viewpoints, there is the Paramartha Drishti, absolute transcendental viewpoint of the witnessing principle or pure consciousness, and Vyavahara Drishti, the mundane empirical viewpoint of the ego or I notion. The possibility of determining the Paramartha of the absolute ultimate reality of the self, a pure consciousness, on the exclusive strength of Anubhava, intuitive experience, as also Yukti, logical devices arguments in consonance with the above mentioned Anubhava, without getting caught in the delusive web of the various controversial and mutually conflicting disputes and dialectical wrangles. These two principal features have not been exemplified and elucidated in such an easy and simple manner in any other treatise whatsoever, except in this compact, concise Bhashya on Adhyasa. Therefore, it is to be emphasized that it is quite proper to take or adopt this Bhashya portion as the main founding source to determine the true Vedantic Siddhanta. 27th question. You have previously, in the book entitled The Essential Adi Shankara, already published by AdhyAtma PrakAsha KAryAlaya, Tyagaraja, Bangalore 28, earlier this year, the published year, elaborated upon the essential teachings of Vedanta Siddhanta by Adi Shankara, is it not? Now, where was the necessity of publishing another Prakarana Grantha pertaining to the same subject? Answer. Though it is true that in the recent book, The Essential Adi Shankara, published in 1991 by us, the quintessence of the Siddhanta had been given, the two salient features, viz., the fact that in the introductory commentary called Adhyasa Bhashya, the principal spiritual teachings of Vedanta have been depicted, the fact that the tenets implicit in that introductory commentary have been repeatedly elucidated in so many ways in the Sutra Bhashya were not demonstrated in that earlier publication. Hence, in order to fulfill that onerous task, this prakarana has become a necessity. So, this ends the third section in this book, Intuitive Approach of Shankara's Vedanta. Now, the fourth section, the essential nature of Adhyasa and the mundane transactions caused by it. Question number 28. What is the prime conclusion or verdict of Adhyasa Bhashya? एवमयमनादिरनन्तो नैसर्गिको अध्यासो मिथ्या प्रत्ययरूपः कर्तृत्वभोक्तृत्व pravartakah sarvaloka pratyakshah. This part of the Bhashya is already exemplified and its translation is given under question number 26 above. Asya anarthahetoh prahanaya atmaikatva pratipattaye sarve vedantaha arabhyante, meaning through the means of destroying totally this adhyasa, which is the root cause for the catastrophe of samsara, transmigrated existence. All the Upanishads have taken up that one soul's purpose of helping the aspirant so that he may attain the Atmaikatva Vidya, the intuition knowledge of the unity or non-duality of Atman. It need not be gainsaid that from this one sentence, it is quite clear that the decisive final verdict of the introductory Adhyasa Bhashya is that the whole Upanishadic lore is directed and dedicated to the sole purpose of teaching Atmaikatva Vidya, so as to enable the aspirant to get rid of this mutual Adhyasa, misconception between Atman and Anatman, which is of the nature of delusion alone and which is quite but natural to and inherent in every human being. 29th question. What is meant by Atmaikatva Vidya? The conviction that Atman alone is the Paramartha Satya or the ultimate absolute reality is called in Vedantic parlance Atmaikatva Vidya. 30th question. Atman means the essential nature of being of the Jijnasu or aspirant alone. Is it not? Anything other than that, whatsoever it may be, is not real. Is it not? Yes, nothing else is real. All else is Anrata, meaning though it appears as if it is real, it is not in reality an existing entity. 31 question. You mean to say that this world of duality which is being perceived by all of us is also not real? Is it not? From the statement, Atman alone is real itself, is it not evident that the other things or the world of duality are existing? It is true that the common run of people are carrying on their workaday transactions of the type of what is being perceived as an object or substance is satya or real. What is objectified or perceived through a pramana or valid means of cognition is satya or real. What is subject to the regulations of action and fruit of action in one series of time, space, and causation categories is satya or real by connoting certain meanings to the word satya. But such characteristics may be suitably addressed to the perceptible world of duality seen in a dream too, and the objects which seem to exist in it. When the Upanishads declare that Atman is Satya or real, they do not connote this meaning to that word Satya. The purport which the Upanishads have is said to be that entity which once determined to exist in a particular nature or form does not change or give up that nature or form is alone called Satya. In this sense, and with this meaning, Atman alone is Satya, the really real entity which is never changing. All else is Anrata or a false appearance indeed, because all others are changing. So it is the really real or eternally truth, absolute truth. 32nd question. Why did Sri Shankaracharya formulate afresh, in complete contravention of and by discrediting the universally acknowledged characteristics of empirical phenomena which are called Satya and Anrata, his own uncommon and exclusive conditions and characteristics for them as suited to and needed by his own exclusive Siddhanta? Answer. These are not at all characteristics imagined or formulated by Sri Shankara by himself to suit his teachings. They are, in fact, characteristics established and acknowledged by the Shrutis, Smritis, and Nyaya Shastra. For example, in the Taittiriya Shruti Upanishad, it is said, Satyam Chandritam Cha Satyam Abhavat, Satyam Chandritam Cha Satyam Abhavat. Yadidam kincha tat satyamityachakshate. Taittiriya Upanishad 2.6. Meaning, Satyam or reality became Satyam and Anritam, or real and unreal phenomena in the empirical realm. All this perceptible world, it became Yadidam kincha tat satyam ityachakshate. That alone is being called Satyam or real. Here it is explained that although in the absolute sense or in the ultimate analysis, to witness from the standpoint of the absolute transcendental reality of pure consciousness self, Atman alone is really real. What the people in the workaday world, that is empirical or mundane realm, transact in the forms of pairs of opposites like Satyam and Anritam are both that absolute reality alone. In the Bhagavad Gita, Smriti, it is said, Nasato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate satah, ubhayorapi drishtontas Anayos Tattvadarshivih Gita, 2nd chapter, 16th shloka. Meaning, Asat or false phenomenon has no existence. Sat or real entity has no non-existence. The Tattvadarshis or those who have realized or intuited the ultimate reality of Atman have cognized and are thereby convinced of these two misconceived forms or phenomena. Thus, the same above meaning has been propagated. Here in this context too, Sat means Atman, who is of an immutable and invariable essence of being. Asat means even after it is determined or established as to what the essence of being of a thing is, that thing has the nature of getting changed or undergoing mutation in its essence of being. Even if one examines this topic teaching from the point of view of Yukti, we arrive at the same conclusion indeed. For whatever phenomenon which is misconceived in or superimposed upon Atman or the Absolute, pure being consciousness never continues or persists to exist in the same essential nature of being. On the other hand, it keeps on changing its forms and undergoes mutational galore. Therefore, in the empirical transactions, or for that matter in the mundane realm, whether it be the common run of people or the scholar, and further whether they, by dint of their natural avidya, observe and connote any meanings to the words Satyam and Anritam, when we are engaged in and concerned about determining the supreme or absolute Parama reality or entity, Artha or Tattva, it is quite in order and proper in adopting the Shastraic characteristics, which also happen to be quite rational, nay intuitive in nature. Hence, With this intention or purport at the back of his mind alone, Sri Shankara has enunciated in his introductory Adhyasa Bhashya as follows: Anyonyasmin anyonyatmakatam अन्योन्या धर्मांश्च अध्यस्य इतरेतरविवेकेन अत्यन्तविविक्तयोः धर्माधर्मिनोः मिथ्याज्ञाननिमित्तः सत्यानृते मिथुनीकृत्य अहमिदं ममेदम् इति नैसर्गिकोऽयं लोकव्यवहारः. The salient features on this sentence are Atman is Satya or real, while Anatman is Anrata or false. Both these can never possibly swap positions or their essential natures. Further, one's intrinsic characteristics or qualities can never become those of the other in whatever manner or forms. Thus, these two are totally distinct or different from each other. Even so, by dint of the innate defect or lacuna of not being able to distinguish between them, Mithya misconception has arisen, and as a result of this later misconception, people in general have quite naturally mixed up the two opposites and have been transacting in the forms of I am this and this is mine. And this mode of transaction is not at all something born or caused by way of an event in time. In truth, as a natural and inherent essence of being of everyone's antahkarana or inner instrument, as the mind it lurks, so to speak, in one's psyche or mind. Next, 33rd question. In the description of the empirical transaction of the type of I am this and this is mine in the Bhashya, why is the usage of the word this made? The word I indicates the form of pure consciousness, Chaitanya, as the Vishayi or subject, as well as of the essential nature of consciousness or sentience, intuition. While the word this signifies the Anatman or not self, which is insentient, which is invariably Vishaya or an object. It should be affirmed here that which is Chetana, conscious or sentient, will ever be self-eliminating and will always be of the essential nature of eliminating its Vishaya and making it perceptible. From this, it can be surmised that the Atma Vastu or the ultimate reality of everyone's self, which is eternally Nitya of the essential nature of pure being consciousness, Chaitanya Swarupa, can never even be imagined by our mind, that it can be conceived as the Anatman or not self, which is an object, Vishaya, insentient, Achidrupa. Even so, it is a wonder of wonders that it can be noticed that identifying with the Anatman, which is an object, as I, aham pratyaya gochara, everyone is carrying on his or her empirical transactions. It is not possible even to conjecture as to how one can ever fully identify with any phenomenon which is indubitably an object, as I myself. This empathy, or in the language of psychology, the power of projecting one's personality into the object of contemplation, and coined after the Greek word empathia, is the technique for upasanas, meant mainly for the middle class aspirants or jijnasus. Can anyone even guess that light is dark in any period of time? Vice versa, can anyone say darkness is light? Further, is it possible for anyone at any time to conceive that in the phenomenon called light there exists at least some traces of darkness? Contrawise, is it possible to imagine that in stark darkness some traces of the essential nature of light do exist? Even so, hey presto, the common people conceive of a relationship of the non-dual reality of Atman, of the very essence of pure absolute consciousness, Advitiya Chaitanya Swarupa, with the Anatman of the very essence of insentience, and then, as if that it in itself is not enough foolhardiness, venture out to believe innately that these two eternally opposed phenomena do have an organic relationship and consequently transact in the form of this is mine. It stands to the credit and glory of this all-time great world teacher, with Sri Shankaracharya, that he exemplified, nay, demonstrated quite convincingly such a commonplace but highly delusive form of our workaday transaction, which is indeed at the very root of all our waking experiences from early morning till bedtime. True jignasus worth any merit whatsoever must be able to cognize this basic fundamental defect of adhyasa in themselves if ever wish to understand the subtleties and higher esoteric teachings of Sri Shankara. This very hard but cruel fact of life has been enunciated by the universal preceptor at the outset in his first sentence of the famous Adhyasa Bhasha in the form of a logical proposition. युष्मदस्मत्प्रत्ययगोचरयोः विषयविषयिणोः तमः प्रकाशवत् विरुद्धस्वभावयोः इतरेतरभावानुपपत्तौ सिद्धायां तद्धर्माणामपि सूत्राणाम् इतरेतरभावानुपपत्तिः इत्यतः अस्मत्प्रत्यय गोचरे विषयिणि चिदात्मके युष्मत् प्रत्यय गोचरस्य विषयस्य तद्धर्माणां च अध्यासः तद्विपर्ययेण विषयिणः तद्धर्माणां च विषये अध्यासो मिथ्या इति भवितुं युक्तं. Meaning, because of the reasons that Vishaya object and Vishayi subject, which have become cognizable as the objects for the two pratyayas or concepts of you and I respectively, and which are of mutually opposite natures like darkness and light. Consequently, the possibility of one being of the essential nature of the other can never be rationally acceptable, as it is patently established in everyone's experience. Collaterally speaking, their respective inherent qualities or characteristics, dharmas, can never be accepted to be interchangeable, with the veracity of this truth also being established. It is completely reasonable to accept the verdict that in the I notion, the object or pratyaya or percept of I, which is the Vishayi, as also the Chidrupa Tattva, entity of the very essence of pure consciousness, the Vishaya, which is perceived as an object, as you, is misconceived, superimposed, and vice versa. In a similar fashion, their respective dharmas or inherent intrinsic natures of or characteristics too are mutually misconceived. Adhyasa is in truth absolutely false. Although, while describing the form or type of empirical transactions in general, the word anatman, meaning not self, has been addressed as this in this propositional sentence at the commencement with Yushmat Pratyaya Gochare. It is described as being suited to be addressed to the notion of you. There is a purport behind this apparent discrepancy. In our workaday transactions, this I, such and such an I, in this manner, the two words this and I are not only addressed to the Vishaya object and the Vishayi subject, respectively, but also they are used for an object too. But it becomes incomprehensible as to how one can use expressions like I, which is you, and you, which is I, in any context whatsoever. For it is so very clearly discernible that you can never be I, as also that I can never be you. It being so, it should be clearly understood that here in this context, Sri Shankara has attempted successfully to bring home the full force of the hard fact of all transmigratory life, that anatman or not self, which can always and invariably be addressed as you, distinguishable from one's own subjective I, can never be associated or blended organically with the sentient and self-cognitive I, and reckoned or even spoken of in that fashion. In other words, much better than the use of the word this, the epithet or significant appellation of you, which is so very obviously and physically noticeable, is suitable to drive home the idea. Even so, it is the irony of life that in Atman self, who is of the very essence of pure consciousness, Chidrupa, and consequently for whom only the subjective, self-conscious appellation of I can rightly be used in all our empirical transactions. In other words, which can never be dealt with in the form of you, an object, insentient phenomenon, all the human beings unwarily and unwittingly, as it were, mix up the anatman, which is extremely and totally of an opposite and alien character and nature to that of Atman, and are carrying on the whole gamut of their mundane dealings. And this phenomenon is in the experience of each and every one of us human beings without any exception whatsoever. This is the subtle meaning of this part of the Bhashya. Next, 34th question. What is meant by Vyavahara or empirical transactions? To know or cognize in the manner, it is like this. To communicate the same through speech or language to others and behave in accordance with it. These three together are called Vyavahara. It is like this. To know or cognize in the manner, it is like this. That is one. Second one, to communicate. One is to know or cognize. Second one is to communicate the same through speech or language to others. And the third one is behave in accordance with it. So, to know or cognize, to communicate, and to behave in accordance with it. This is called Vyavahara. So, let us stop this here. This is a seventh session in the intuition, that is intuitive approach of Shankara's Vedanta by Sri D.V. GangoLLi. Next, eighth session, we shall continue in the next session. Hare Rama. Shri Shri Sachidanandena Saraswati Charanaravindarpitamastu. Shri Shankararpitamastu. Shri D.V. GangoLLi Charanaravindarpitamastu. Sarve Jana Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Tat Sat. Brahmarpanamastu.